Yes, This song is called Be the Change, inspired by the words of Mahatma Gandhi, who lived for peace and not violence, and told us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Freedom's calling, I feel the fire that's deep inside us. Everybody wants change, but tell me who will guide us. To the leaders that pass away, put up your lighters. It's a beautiful struggle, but it cannot divide us. We're the ones that we've always been waiting for. See yourself in the mirror and open up the door. Walk through it and feel the love throughout your pores. Be the light, life's purpose is to feel joy. Metaphysical, lyrical, standing up for truth. The only one to make change is walking in your shoes. Be the example, don't complain about the news. Making music and serving the world with the loot. Now you can be the same, or you can be the change. Find strength from inside, break through the chains. No one to blame, nothing to prove. You create your reality, it's up to you. Be the change that you wanna see in the world. Like Gandhi, live for peace. Aspire to peace. Someone who fights for the beliefs. Like Martin Luther King. Aspire to be that Lord, that light, like Christ. This life for the moment indeed. And if you believe in Jehovah, Allah, Buddha, Krishna, it's love to me. My soul yearns for peace in a world that's flooded with war. History's littered with body scars. Welcome to the 100th Monkey with Tom and Raimo. Man, are these potatoes something else. I am just having such a good time washing mine, and I have shown a couple other people how to wash theirs, and they're showing a couple other people how to wash theirs, and they're showing a couple other people how to wash theirs, and they're showing a couple people how to wash it. Oh, there we go. The monkey effect is happening, and consciousness is spreading, and the world is waking up. Oh, God, there's an old song from the 80s, Watching the World Wake Up to History. I think it's REM or something like that. We're watching it. We're watching people wake up to history, and man, some big stuff going on.
Is Idaho Potato giving you money under the table by any chance?
Oh yeah. Hey, you know, we actually should talk to those guys. You know, we are promoting potatoes, so.
Oh, many great things going on here. Let me pull up the news section really quickly. But we have a great guest, and we're going to cover a lot of different things with the guest. But before we go into that, oh, by the way, my book is out. So for those of you who are interested, you can just go to the website, scroll down, and then you'll see my book is called Scratching the Cosmic Conscious. You can get it either on Kindle or in book form. And in the news section, let's see, we got, I put something up called The True Adventures of a Psychic Spy. That's all the Stargate program back in the 70s. 20 homeopathic remedies that every home should not be without.
Oh, the next thing in the news, there's one that's appropriate for this show here. Cleveland, Ohio, giant footprint in solid granite.
And actually, you know how I found that news? Our guest put it on Facebook. So, yeah, if you can't guess who that is yet, then you obviously haven't been following his work. So, okay, before we get thrown off, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And Tom, let's get right. I'm excited to interview our guest.
Oh,
what do we have?
Well, Michael Tellinger has become one of South Africa's best-selling export authors. His regular articles on human origins and the book Slave Species of God have been praised by readers in over 20 countries. Michael is a scientist in the true sense of the word, never shying away from controversial issues. Scrutinizing every clue meticulously, he graduated in 1983 from the University of Witwatersrand, I think I said that really bad, medical school, Johannesburg, with a B.Pharmaceutics degree, a passion for the cosmos, genetics, and human history. His research and astute understanding of his subject matter has made him a regular guest on many radio shows in the USA and UK,
with popular hosts like George Noory on Coast to Coast, Kevin Smith, Hillary Raimo, American Freedom Radio, Howard Hughes in the UK, the Camelot Project, and the 100th Monkey Radio. So, Michael Tellinger, welcome back to the 100th Monkey. I think it was May 18th of last year that we had you on for an hour.
Yeah, lovely talking to you guys. Hi, Ramon. Hi, Tom. Lovely to be able to chat to you on Skype, and it just brings back the fond memories when I last saw you at the Eketi Ranch with James Gilliland.
Yeah, so you have many big things going on in your life. Let's see, we got the big case, we got the Bigfoot, a couple of Bigfoots.
Yeah.
So what?
Big things, yeah.
Yeah, where you want to start off? You want to go to prehistory, or you want to? I think it would be probably best if we go into the big case first, because this is really important, and I really admire you for having the cojones. I don't know if you guys know what that means in South Africa.
Cojones, but, oh yeah, we watch enough American movies with Mexican or Spanish slang in it, yeah. Spanglish.
Yeah, I gotta say, you have some really big ones, and I'm glad, because like Mahatma Gandhi once said, you have to be the change you want to see in the world. So tell us about that.
It's interesting that you mentioned Mahatma Gandhi, because you realize that he started his whole theory or his philosophy actually started here in South Africa. Many people aren't aware of that.
Yeah.
And he was a victim of apartheid. He was a lawyer practicing at a law firm in KwaZulu-Natal, practicing as a lawyer, and then started his passive resistance against apartheid, and eventually took it to India, where he obviously rose to the fame that everybody now recognizes around the name of Mahatma Gandhi. But you know what I'd like to do, just because you mentioned where do we start? There's a lot of big things going on. Well, I think what's important for your listeners to realize is that none of these things going on are separate from anything else. Everything is connected through a continuous chain of historic events. One thing that leads to the other so beautifully that it starts with trying to unravel the origins of humankind, coming to grips with some of the shocking truths and revelations that, when you first realize what's going on is a bit shocking to the system. And once you overcome that, you start, doing more research, and you realize what was going on planet Earth for millions and millions of years. And so it goes from studying origins of humankind, then vanished ancient civilizations linked to the Anunnaki, the ancient gold mines, that take us to Sumeria or Sumer, where we start seeing the most famous and most talked about Sumerian scripts and so forth, that suddenly spill the beans on all the stuff that's been going on, and before you know it, you figure out that the laws and the kingdoms that they impose on humanity are still the laws and the kingdoms that are being used on humanity today.
Right.
And it is this long, beautiful story that can be strung out over, well, since humanity are, as we would refer to as modern human beings that we're a part of, since about 250 or 280,000 years ago, first appeared here as slaves to mine the gold. Suddenly we're now grappling with issues of enlightenment and consciousness that has just catapulted us beyond the consciousness levels of those that created us. And I think in there lies the real interesting issue that we can get to later. But you spoke about the big case, the big case that you mentioned is my legal battle with Standard Bank here in South Africa. Now, most people around the world won't know Standard Bank because it's a South African bank, but it's one of the biggest banks in the world. And just a little twist to a curve to this little story is, and you'll know what I'm talking about, anytime you hear the word Standard in a name of a company, it should start ringing warning bells, as in Standard Oil.
Right.
And who do we link that to? And we know it's the Rockefeller empire, which is directly linked to the Illuminati. So here we go. So we're taking on the Rockefellers through Standard Bank, and the might of the global banking fraternity. Because I've been at this for a year and a half now, taking on the banks. I've been in the Supreme Court of South Africa 3 times in Johannesburg, and on 2 occasions my arguments lasted for 2.5 hours, where the bank's lawyers and advocates thought it wouldn't be more than 15 minutes, and that was a big shock to their system. And the 3rd time my argument lasted 1.5 hours, which was our appeal against the judgment that obviously went against us, and that lasted 1.5 hours, and it was during that appeal that we made some serious breakthroughs. But maybe I'm going too far down the line. Maybe we're going to pull it back a bit and talk about why I'm in court against the bank.
So real quick, are the courts in South Africa, are they open to the public, or is this a closed forum?
Oh no, they're open to the public. It's a people's court. That's what it's called. It's the people's court. Okay. And the big thing is that, I've been in the Supreme Court or the High Court of Johannesburg now, as I said, 3 times, and the judges it seems like they're on drugs. Either they're on drugs, or they're just really stupid, or they're getting paid off by the bank. So I'll leave it up to you to decide which one it is.
Right.
Here's a very important question, because I know there's a lot of listeners saying like, oh wow, Michael's doing that, that's great, and maybe some of them, you might inspire some people to do this. What are some of the steps and maybe some of the suggestions that you would say if someone wanted to do this? Because it's not a problem only happening in South Africa or America. I mean, it's every single country.
Well, Ramon, maybe we should step back a little bit and get a little bit more background on this case. So we didn't really put out on the table what exactly the case is.
Yeah, exactly. The case is about my mortgage bond, my home loan on my house. It's not the house that I live in, which is fortunate, so I could afford to take this route and test the water. So I gambled on this because, if it goes against me, so tough luck, they're going to sell the house, execute it on an auction, and hit me with a bill for other expenses. And so I didn't really worry about that too much. But it was about 2.5 years ago that I started finding out about the free man movement and the whole, the free man, the sovereign human as opposed to the legal fiction human, the straw man. And I started studying that, and together with my good friend Scott Kundal, who was way ahead of myself, I met another amazing character called Johan Noory, who was a veterinarian who'd been doing this for about 8 years already in South Africa and in the UK, studying and exploring.
Hello? Did we lose Michael?
The governments and the laws.
Oh, Michael, you cut out for about 10 seconds there. If you just talked about your friend in the UK and.
Yeah, Johan Noory. He died unfortunately about probably nearly a year ago now. I believe he was taken out. He was really getting very, very close to unraveling the convoluted legal network that has been created to protect the banks and protect the giant corporations against onslaught by the common man. And Johan started introducing us to the concepts of sovereignty and sovereign humans, and what that means, how our sovereignty and our absolute freedom has been restricted by the royalty, the governments, and the giant banking corporations who hide behind the laws that have been created for hundreds of years through admiralty law, as you all know, that have been adapted for the pure benefit of the global elite, and not for the benefit of the common person or the lay person, as is often called in the courts. And I've experienced this greatly now, because whenever I go into the court to represent myself, I'm seen as a layperson, and it comes from laity or commoner, who has no regard among the royalty or the higher echelons of landowners in the past and so forth. And it's a fascinating thing, because as I started finding out about this free man concept, and in America there are a few leaders that have been pushing this concept for quite a while, and the name just escapes me now. The main guy in the United States, my goodness, it'll come to me now. And in Canada, there's Robert Menard that's been doing a lot of work in this area, sharing the free man principles with people. But unfortunately, you can't just walk into a court and think you're going to get away with it, because the deck is stacked so incredibly against humanity and the common man that most of the judges probably don't even know about it, or they have been trained in it without actually really understanding what it is that they're doing. So if you start standing your ground as a free or a sovereign individual, they think you're just a troublemaker, and they throw the book at you, and there is no way you can get out of it. So what I started doing about a year and a half ago is I started getting some demand letters from the bank, because I was a few payments behind on my bond, and my mortgage bond. We call it the bond here, right?
Right.
And I thought, okay, well, let me test the water here. Let me see how accurate and true all this stuff is that I've been learning about and so forth. And boy, the moment I started to ask some questions, I realized within the first few days, I realized that everything I'd heard about was probably true. And I'll tell you what I started. And Tom, I think it was you that asked me up front, what advice can I give people? Or Ramon said, how can people learn from my experience? What I can tell you right up front, do not have telephonic conversations with people. Write it down. Send them emails. Keep copies of the emails of everything that you discuss with these people. Okay, and make sure that whatever you discuss with them is in the form of a notice and a letter of demand that you send them. And you give them a certain time period to respond to your letter of demand, so that if they don't respond, you've got ammunition. Suddenly the weight of the argument swings in your favor, because you've asked for something and they did not deliver. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong, because they go, oh, please, can I have this? And they go pleading with the banks and pleading with these. You don't plead with them. You stand your ground and you ask them for X, Y, and Z. I want this from you by such and such. And if they don't, you send them another letter. I want this from you by such and such a date. And then you send them a third and final demand. And if you can, send it via email and also via notarized letter, affidavit, and then notify them via email that you've sent them a notarized affidavit to which you expect a response. And then, boy, then you've got some real legal steps on your side. Because I don't know how it works in the United States, but in South Africa, we've got a number of laws and acts, like the Bank Act, the Consumer Protection Act, the Credit Act, and a whole bunch of other acts that can be used by commoners like myself to protect yourself and put the bank on terms.
Yeah, it's very similar here, yeah.
Yeah, and if they don't respond, which they don't, because they believe that they're sacrosanct. They believe that you can't attack them from any level, and they're in many aspects they're correct. And that's why no one has succeeded so far to get anywhere near to their Achilles heel to bring this giant monstrosity down, because they just get away with murder, absolute tyranny and exploitation, because the courts are there really to support them. And my court cases have been spectacular examples of this, and this is why we've now taken it to the highest court, the Constitutional Court in South Africa. And let me just tell you right now that's a full bench. It's 11 judges, 22 clerks, about 6 or 8 other advocates that do additional research, And that's what I'm going to be facing. And this is the court that writes the laws in South Africa, just like in the United States. And, you know, we pride ourselves here as having the most advanced and the most liberal and advanced constitution in the world, because it was written by Nelson Mandela and co. when he was released from prison. So it's a very interesting time we're going into here. So I started writing letters to the bank, asking them for just very simple things. An official statement, because I haven't received a statement on my account for nearly a year at that stage. So I wanted an official statement. And when you say official, it means it needs to be on a company letterhead with the names of the directors and signed by a senior manager of the bank. That means official statement, not a piece of paper with some numbers on it. And I also wanted, I wrote to the bank, I said, I might be coming into some money and I'd like to get the settlement amount on the bond. What it is, you know, what would be the settlement amount if I wanted to settle the whole loan? And they refused to give me that paper. They refused to give me an official statement, and they refused to give me a settlement, a bill for a settlement amount. There's also a special word for it now that escapes me. But
no. When you say they refused to give you that, did you do this 3-step process? Was that through the 3-step process?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh yes, I sent them several emails requesting that, and then eventually saying, look, if I don't get these documents from you by this date, I'll take whatever steps are necessary. You know, you don't say what you're going to do. You say I'll take whatever steps are necessary. You always, you know, keep your options open, whatever steps I might have to take. And as this was happening, I was obviously learning on a daily basis huge amount of information coming from my friends that were working in the Freeman, and lawyers and people that were working and getting information of how the banks work and how they con us. And I started learning also about what is referred to as the bills of exchange. Now, the bills of exchange in South Africa come from the British bills of exchange from 1882. That's how far back it goes. In America, it's called something else. I forget what it's called, but it's exactly the same act, the Bills of Exchange Act. Now, they govern the commerce in the country. All commerce in this country is based on the Bills of Exchange Act. And you realize very quickly that in the Bills of Exchange and in the Bank Act, there is no definition for the word money. There are definitions for bills of exchange or liquid negotiable instruments. And you realize that anything with your signature on it, my signature on it, is turned by the bank into a liquid negotiable instrument. Negotiable instruments there are 3 types of negotiable instruments. Those are checks, bills of exchange, and promissory notes. That's it. Those are the 3 species of negotiable instruments. And the way you make them liquid, or you give them value, is by signing them, by putting your signature on it. The moment it's got my signature on it, the bank can then do with it whatever they want behind closed doors without sharing that information with me. And this is what I started to find out. I mean, I now know so much more than I did then, but I was just going blindly, believing and resonating that I'm going in the right direction. So in a way, I was doing all of this relatively blindly, just on the faith that I was asking the right questions and I was protecting myself to have backup in the future to say, well, I asked for X, Y, and Z and I didn't get it. Now, if the roles were reversed, if the bank sends you a demand to produce X, Y, and Z to them, and you don't produce that, what happens? You know, you're in deep, deep trouble. The courts rule against you, right?
Right.
But if I sent the bank 3 affidavits, 3 notarized affidavits, requesting those 2 documents from them, and then the 3rd time around also requested my original promissory note, which is the offer to purchase the property in question. That is referred to then, once you sign it and they take it, you never see that piece of paper again. They keep that original, because that becomes the liquid negotiable instrument, a promissory note.
Right.
Now, it's fascinating that months later, in the court case, I didn't even know this, okay? In the court case, my second hearing actually against Standard Bank, inadvertently, the senior counsel, the advocate for the bank, who's one of the most senior advocates in the country, volunteered the information to us that in the home loan mortgage bond agreement, it actually states that the bank accepts payments in the form of negotiable instruments, bills of exchange, and promissory notes, whether they are endorsed or not. And this has been one of our arguments all along, that the banks do not work with money, they work with bills of exchange. But I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, which is, it's an interesting thing that happened months later. And eventually what I did then is, because I couldn't get the official statement or the settlement amount, the certificate of balance, that's the right word for it, certificate of balance, right, for the home loan. I went into the bank and I stood at the counter and I demanded that they gave me a official statement for the full outstanding amount. And after, at first they just wanted to print out a bunch of numbers on a piece of paper, and I said, no, I want it on an official letterhead. And they said, well, we don't normally do that. And I said, well, I'm sorry, you better do that. I'm the customer, it's my account, I need to get it on an official letterhead. And eventually, after a lot of haggling, they gave me this thing on an official letterhead, and I made them stamp it with a date. And then I said, where's the manager, because I need the manager's signature on it, and eventually found the assistant manager who stamped it and authorized it, that it was a true, authentic copy of. So what I had in my hand then was an authentic, or a document that complies with all the stipulations of a bill of exchange. All I had to do then is to sign it, accept it for value, and give it back to the bank, which I did. And I did that in a separate letter, notarized letter, saying, here is a full and final settlement. Since I can't get the information from you that I asked you, I went and got my own bill of exchange from one of the branches, I went and got my own statement, and I turned it into a negotiable liquid instrument, and here it is, please settle the account in full. I never heard from the bank. They didn't acknowledge the receipt of it, because I sent it with registered post, so I've got evidence that they received it. They never acknowledged receipt of it, they never denied it, they never sent it back saying, sorry, we don't accept this kind of form of payment. They kept my money. So in essence, what they've done is they've opened themselves to the criminal charges of theft, which we're going to be dealing with in the near future. And this is amazing. So what happened then is, I was busy talking to the bank, trying to get this information from them, not getting it, and as soon as I sent them that bill of exchange to settle the account, within a day or so after that, or within a week after that, I got a summons from them to execute the house, the property. Now, remember what's going on here. I'm busy talking to them, asking them for certain documents. They're refusing to give me the documents, and instead of giving me the documents I'm asking them for, which is two simple documents, they stop communicating with me. They say, sir, we're no longer going to communicate with you. We're handing you over to our lawyers. And so, they're in breach of so many different laws and acts and fiduciary responsibilities as a bank. It is quite spectacular. Then the real heavyweight stuff started hitting us as how strong our argument and our case is. And there have been a few cases in the United States that have gone in favor of the people. So we've been actually using them as examples in South Africa, but the judges didn't look at it at all. They just ignored it. And that's surprising. The way that banks work, first of all, they don't have their own money. Okay? They have no money. Now, in the olden days, when banks were lending money, they were actually lending money that they were keeping in deposit from other people.
Right.
So it had real value. Now, the banks loan billions. I mean, the Standard Bank in South Africa advertises, everywhere you look, they advertise 75 billion rand in home loans. And you look at these ads and you go, where do you guys get that money from?
Yep.
It's impossible for you to have vaults and vaults of money.
There was I was gonna bring up the case that you're probably familiar with. It was in the 1970s where I can't remember his name, but he proved that the banks actually never gave him any liquid cash. So
Yes.
because he was able to prove, he was able to keep his home because
Yes.
he was able to prove that there was no cash.
Yes, and that, Ramon, that you're spot on. That is such a very important point in our argument. Because, you see, it took us quite a while to figure out how the courts and the judges will look at our argument. I mean, the first time I walked into the court, I was a naive, ignorant little, person, not knowing what I was doing, and my arguments were so naive and innocent, just from a layman's perspective, right? And the judge didn't know what the hell I was talking about. He was trying to understand, but because you come into the court and you start arguing it from a normal human being's perspective, this catches them off guard. And we realize that we can't do that to these judges because they're not trained to listen to normal human argument. You have to present it in legal, case law, precedents, and quote examples from different acts and so forth.
You got to speak their language.
Absolutely. So slowly but surely, luckily, after the first hearing, which, as I said, the bank was shocked that they didn't walk away within 15 minutes, because all other cases before me, and there have been quite a few in the growing community of what we call the Freeman Society here in South Africa, and it's grown to several thousand strong now. Every time I went to court, there were like 50 people in support of me in the court. So the judge and the bank were like, "Geez, what's going on here? Who are all these people?" And that's been amazing. At one stage, in the very first hearing, they accused us of being a cult. I mean, this is how dumb lawyers are. Okay, this is how dumb the lawyers are. They suddenly say, "Oh, my lord," because they call the judge my lord in the High Court here, the first time you go into the courts and you see the whole old boys club with their black cloaks and the bowing as you go in and walking out backwards and bowing to the Lord, standing on his podium there, you realize this old Kabbalistic, ritualistic club that just performs the same rituals as they did thousands of years ago, So that's quite a shock to the system when you realize this has got nothing to do with justice, but everything to do with some sort of ritual ancient cult rituals. And so the first time we went, they accused us of being a cult, and I just looked at the judge and I went, so excuse me, a cult has got as much protection in the Constitution as anybody else. So what are they trying to say? Whether we're a cult or not doesn't matter. Our rights are absolutely protected. Christians are a cult. Muslims are a cult. Any group of people, like-minded people that have a certain belief system, are a cult. So, that was a big mistake, and they never brought that up again. They realized, we can't go down that.
Yeah.
But they were trying everything just to trying to get under our skin or trying to figure out who we were. Because remember, we came at them from not represented by lawyers or advocates, just representing ourselves. So it's an unknown quantity, and they've never dealt with this before. Every other person that has gone before us to represent themselves used a lawyer or an advocate, and every one of those cases was thrown out within 5 minutes. And that's what made the difference, I believe, because we had the courage to go and inform ourselves, learn this stuff so we understood it, and go and stand there on our own, facing the banks and their might. And let me tell you, it's quite intimidating and frightening the first time you walk in there.
That's the key. That's the key, though, isn't it? Informing yourself, doing the research.
Absolutely. You've got to know. You can't go there thinking you know, because the judge is going to ask you questions, and he will stump you. He will, he'll block you. You've got to know exactly what you're talking about, and know enough to confuse the judge. So the judge has to go back and go, okay, hold on, I don't know enough about this subject matter. So that's exactly what happened. We went back and after 2.5 hours argument, this judge was so confused He said, no, I can't make a call on it. He took a 1 hour break. He said, come back in an hour and I'll give you my judgment. We went away for lunch, came back, and he said, no, I haven't, this subject matter needs a lot more introspection or whatever, and I'll give you my judgment in a week. So we came back a week from then and he gave us a judgment, which was favorable for us because he was unhappy with the evidence of the bank. The bank's affidavit lacked certain elements that it requires according to the law, and that saved our bacon in a certain way and gave us an opportunity to go back and rethink our argument, and the bank had an opportunity to go back and redo their affidavit, which they did not do. They have still not complied with that first judgment, so that's already a breach of law. They're not allowed to submit that affidavit the way they submitted it because they haven't got a ratification from the board of directors of the bank allowing this particular person to give us his affidavit in support of the argument for the bank.
Right.
So that's a whole other little big area that has been ignored by the courts and the judges. So,
Michael, let me ask you this quick question. In the straw mans, and I don't know if it's different in South Africa as it is in America, but when you give your name, you say, so, okay, let's say I'm going to court and I say, okay, Ramon Almonte, then it's not me, the person, that I'm saying, it's me, the corporation. So, how are you avoiding that, or does that even count in the South African courts?
It's a very good question. It's a very important question. And we chose right up front not to fight that battle. To go in there and not confuse the judge. Not fight that battle and say, sorry, I'm not Michael Tellinger, the corporation or the legal fiction. I'm Michael of the family Tellinger, the living, breathing human being. I chose not to fight that battle. That's going to come later. Let's use the law that they've created against them. And I think that's what we've done very successfully so far. That's why we are here today, waiting to submit our papers to the Constitutional Court with so much supportive material and acts and laws. It is a watertight case. The banks have no way out. We will expose them on every level, that they have broken the law, that they've abused the law, that they've entrapped people, that they've lied in court. In the case that I've been in, they have lied repeatedly. Several areas they've lied under oath in the court, and so forth. So that's what's coming up in the Constitutional Court very soon. But the road to this point it was like a learning curve for us. And every time we went back into the court, we felt less intimidated, and we had no fear. We'd lost all our fear. And that is the key moment when you know you get ascendancy. When you walk into that court and you have no fear because you know the subject matter better than the bank, well, better than the lawyers of the bank, better than the judge, and you can argue circles around them for as long as they want to. And the main reason for that is that all we're doing is telling the truth, and it comes back to that. Right. We're not there making up stories or trying to wangle out of debt or trying to change things to suit us or conniving this or that. We're just there telling the truth, telling it as it is.
Standing in integrity.
Absolutely. Standing in integrity, telling it like it is, and being as truthful as we possibly can. And that has, I believe, been the reason why we've succeeded. Representing ourselves.
What kind of major media coverage in South Africa have you gotten from this, or has it been completely shut out of the media?
No, we've had one major article in the Mail and Guardian, which is a big weekly newspaper, comes out every Friday, and they sort of they write sort of major stories. They don't just, it's not just a little clipping. They write major full-page reviews on the stories that they write. So we had a nice half-page article in there. It wasn't very favorable because they, we sent out a press release saying, David versus Goliath, kind of thing. So one or two journalists came into the court, and unfortunately the judgment went against us. But it's the process in which the judgment went against us that has now given us the ammunition at the Constitutional Court, because the judge basically painted himself into a corner, and many of the things that transpired during that hearing, or during that appeal, should I say, because that was our appeal it was our application to appeal the judgment. I mean, this is how convoluted this stupid law system is. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, and it's the same judge. You have to appeal to the same judge to change his mind about the judgment, so that you can go to the appeals court in Bloemfontein and face the 5 judges there and appeal your judgment. So, and this is brilliant, because we posed and it was at this appeal that I was as cool as a cucumber. I was just stating the facts as it is, and the senior advocate for Standard Bank lost it. He lost the plot. He got angry and excited and red in the face, and he was shouting at the top of his voice almost, how sick and tired they are of me, and this, and then he says, and then he blurted out, this is now what we have on record. It's like a miracle. It's been presented to us by the advocate of Standard Bank, where he says, so what if the bank doesn't have money? Everybody knows that the bank doesn't have money. So what if they securitize the signatures? So what if they profiteer of the signatures, or something to that extent? What the bank does with your signature behind the scenes is none of your business. And he blurted out the 3 key arguments that we're arguing against the bank. Wow. At which point, I must tell you, the whole court was waiting for the judge to go, okay, Mr. Senior Advocate, please explain to me what you just said, because that's what he's been arguing all day long. But the judge didn't do that. He just ignored it, as if it didn't even happen.
Wow.
We were just shocked. We were absolutely shocked. He said, but he just admitted to what I've been claiming all along. And then by the time
it sounded like he was trying to just tell you, like, yeah, we can do this, so what, and the judge knows about it. That was,
yeah, but remember, it's unlawful. The law prevents them from doing all the stuff we're saying they were doing. The acts prevent the banks from doing that. Okay? Profiteering, securitizing our signatures without disclosure, and there's so many other things that come into this. I mean, these are just 3 things. But, the fact that they securitize a signature means they lose all rights to the property in question, because they sold your promissory note, your original offer to purchase. They sold that as a liquid negotiable instrument, as a bill of exchange. They bundle them and they sell them on the global markets, on the bond markets. So people buy these, they invest in these, and they're just these bullshit investment opportunities that people have no idea what they're investing in. Okay, so the moment the bank does that, so this is where I need to come back and just to explain. I see we got a few minutes left. How much time we got left before we go to a break?
We've got 15 minutes.
Oh, 15 minutes. Okay. So before we go down the different rabbit hole right now, let me just basically tell you what the bullet points, right? The bank has no money, okay, to lend out. So, in contract law, it stipulates you cannot lend what you do not possess. So, by standing under oath and saying they lent us money, they are lying under oath and in breach of contract law, because they'd never had the money in the first place. You have to have something before you can tell somebody you're going to lend it to them.
Right.
You can't say, I'm going to lend it to you, but I'm going to generate what you're asking to lend from me only after you give me your signature, so I can use your signature to generate that income. That's breach of contract law. And that's a very strong and very severe breach of contract law. So that's one of our first arguments. Okay. Secondly is they take your note and they securitize it. Securitization means they sell it to a company, which is called a special purpose vehicle or a special purpose company. These are companies that have been set up since, I think, the early 90s or the late 80s. This has become the big thing in the world, and slowly but surely growing. And Standard Bank works with about 5, if I'm not mistaken, about 5 special purpose vehicle companies. And these are intermediary companies that buy these bonds and the promissory notes from the banks. They bundle them and they sell them to the Reserve Bank. And the Reserve Bank in turn sells it to the DTCC in New York, the Depository Trust Clearance Corporation, who makes it available and bundles it on the global stock markets as bonds. So this is the devious journey that your signature takes. Now, I've heard from one particular guy who followed, he's actually an American, who followed his signature on his promissory note, and he found that it was sold 18 times. 18 times.
Wow.
Now, if this happens, there is no disclosure. Remember that a contract must be fair in all areas and must have full disclosure as to what happens under those specifications of that contract. There is no disclosure that your signature is going to be used to generate the loan that you think you're getting from the bank. So there's already another breach there, that there's no disclosure in terms of what they do with your signature. Remember, it's my signature on that promissory note that generates the value. They can't do what they do without my signature. So if my signature generates the value, and the bank then sells my signature to get the money, and they get on average 3 times the value of that original home loan amount. So if it's a R1 million, $1 million you're borrowing from the bank, they sell that note on average for 3 times the value, so $3 million. They never disclose that to me, that it's my signature that they generate that money on. So that's non-disclosure. There's another breach of contract. And the fact that they're not lending me their money, but they're generating the money on my signature, means that they're not the lender, that they're performing the role of an intermediary, as an agent, and they should not be entitled to any kind of interest or repayment on that loan. The only thing they should be entitled to is a commission, like an estate agent.
Right.
So let me ask you this, because there's so many problems happening. The mortgage is the big one, but the other one that's popping up really big is the college loans. Is that the exact same thing? Because I remember with my college loan, I sign a piece of paper, and I accept this loan, and I get the check to give to the school. No, actually it goes straight to the school, and then the school cuts you a check for whatever is left over after they take their share. Is that the exact same thing happens?
I believe it is. Remember, the bank does not have money. The way they generate money is from securitization and selling off your promissory note. When you signed the papers to get the loan, that becomes the promissory note. They offer you a loan, and you sign the terms and conditions and so forth. Man, I tell you what, Ramon, this thing is so rotten. Every step of the way is a rotten attempt to entrap you, to enslave you. Its entire construction is to mislead you, to confuse you, and to entrap you for as long as they can, so they can milk you for as long as they can. So I suspect that when we break down the banks with our constitutional court, it'll have a ripple effect through all the banks around the world, because they're all connected, and clearly this is going to be a global revolution, and a move towards what I call contributionism, as you know already, and we start moving towards a moneyless society through a few intermediary steps, going from using money to using the control of money, or money linked to resources, and then eventually realizing that we actually don't need money because people do things in any case, and why do we need to throw money as a hurdle between people doing things and people receiving things? And slowly but surely over the next 3 to 5 years, I think we'll see the eradication of money completely.
There's definitely, I think, I forgot the name of the website. There's a website that's doing something like that already. I think it's a barter something.
There's a lot of this type of stuff that's popping up, and it's all based on the contributionism theory, where well, service for service or good for good.
Yeah. Now, I must just correct you there, Tom. The contributionism theory goes beyond that. Actually, it says that you need to remove barter or trade out of the system, because as long as you have barter or trade, you still have an opportunity for somebody to try and control the system, because he who has more to barter or trade will eventually try and take control so they can rule the roost. So you need to move beyond barter or trade, and contributionism is really a system of absolute equality where everybody contributes whatever their natural talents or God-given skills are, or their acquired skills, to the greater benefit of all in their community. And it was actually James Gilliland at the UFO conference where he said, the Cherokee have a saying, it says, if it's not good for everyone, it's not good at all.
Right.
And it's really that kind of mindset. And in Africa, that goes right back to the principles of Ubuntu, where communities work together towards the greater benefit of all, towards unity consciousness and unity abundance for all. And not about, well, I've got 10 cows and you've only got 10 lettuces. I'm sorry, my cows are more valuable than yours. That's not going to work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but if we can come back to just a few of these basics where the banks have been pulling the wool over our eyes, just so that your listeners understand these principles. And what I'll do is I'll email you. But you can actually just, I'm going to type in here, where to go, new era .org.
Okay, and we'll link this on the show page also.
So newera.org.za.
Yeah, we'll
or,
have that link
or,
on the page.
The big case .co.za. I think it's .co. The big case .co.za. Both of those will have links to my particular case, the Constitutional Court case. And I must just repeat, this has never happened in global history, where an individual has faced the Constitutional Court, a full panel of 11 judges and the full machine behind them, to challenge the banks and the way they work. So this is a historic event worldwide.
Yeah, I really hope that this we continue to get good coverage on this by media. I know the alternative media, places like us, and I mean, I've seen some comments on a few other sites about what you're going through. I just hope that this continues to grow and people keep putting this material out and follow this. I mean, geez, this is definitely big. This will be a good template for others to use and to understand how the system works. Once everyone can actually wrap their mind around how this really works, then we have the tools that we need to, to fix this system. So.
The funny thing is that it seems being, it's funny because, Michael's in South Africa, I'm in Japan, and Tom's in Washington. And being here in Japan, I get to meet people from many different English-speaking countries, other countries as well, but mostly a lot of English teachers. And it seems from what you're telling me and what they tell me and other people tell me that most of the countries that have been taken over by the English rule pretty much have that same standard laws.
Right.
The ones that we've been talking about. Because a lot of things you're saying are the same in America and same in Australia.
Well, it's maritime law, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And remember that, I went to the Constitutional Court the other day just to, while I was in Johannesburg, just to get a feel for it. And, it's a big tourist attraction because, we now have this new constitution and this amazing freedom that's like the best in the world and all that. They keep showing this to all the tourists that come to Johannesburg. And so there's all these hordes of tourists that come to the Constitutional Court. But for any educated person that knows what you and I know, you walk through that foyer of the Constitutional Court and you see all this British regalia from King George, the original document written by King George in 1910, handwritten, right, where he gives South Africa independence. No, and you see all these other pompous British royal regalia crap everywhere. You realize, oh my God, South Africa still belongs to the Queen.
Right.
That's the first thing that jumps out at you. Nowhere do I hear that it belongs to the people. Nowhere does it say here that it was given back to the people. It was given in the just like the United States of America belongs to the Queen. You think it belongs to the doesn't.
Yep. And that's the same way Australia.
So does Australia and Canada and New Zealand and many other countries belong to the Queen. And this just hit me like a ton of bricks. I went, oh my God, this is so obvious.
Yeah.
So it's interesting stuff. But so very very briefly, as I guess we're coming to the end of the first hour.
Right.
Very briefly. So the bank doesn't have any money to lend you. So they're in breach of contract law because they tell you they're going to lend you something that they don't have. The way they generate the thing that they lend you is based on your signature, which they sell on the international stock markets. It's called securitization. It's got some very interesting, complex things that go on there, but in a nutshell, that's what they do. That is unlawful. The banks are not allowed to securitize their promissory notes or bills of exchange without explicitly notifying you of what they're doing with your signature.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we already got 3 breaches. Thirdly, the moment they sell your promissory note, they lose what's in Latin law called locus standi, or they lose all rights to that property. They have no right to come and take or sue you for that property because they've sold the rights.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So this gets more and more interesting. And and thirdly, in my particular, or whatever, fifthly, in my particular case, in the law, in the home loan agreement, in the mortgage bond agreement, they say there that I have to pay them back in lawful money. Now, nowhere in any of the agreements that you sign does it use the word money. In the home loan agreement and the offer to purchase, it doesn't ever use the word money. It always uses very sneaky words like a sum of, or a credit of, or an amount of. It never says money, because the moment they say money, they're talking about physical, what is referred to as, currency, right? Physical money. And they don't say that on purpose because they know they're not going to give you physical money. They create money out of thin air. And this is the other thing that the lawyer for the banks admitted, and we have it on record, that the banks create money out of thin air. They punch a bunch of numbers into the computer and they just create the money miraculously.
Right.
Through very clever bookkeeping entries with debits and credits. That's how they create money.
Okay, well, we're at the top of the hour, Michael. So if you would give you an opportunity real quick to give out your websites, and have you got anything going on this year? What's going on for conferences or lectures or new books or anything going on?
Yeah. My book, Slave Species of God, is being picked up by Inner Traditions, Bear & Co., big American publisher. And that's being released. Yeah, that's being released in worldwide now, I guess, by Bear & Co. I think in September or October, under a slightly new name. They're calling it the Slave Species of the Gods, and it has a whole new cover, really nice new funky cover, and they've made a few edits to it, and I think it's going to be a real success, because it just takes it to a whole nother level that I couldn't take it to myself. But I'll be coming to the United States in June and July. I'll be there for 6 weeks. Firstly in Vermont, doing the American Dowsers Association. I'm the keynote speaker there. And then I'll be doing a tour across from the East Coast to the West Coast, and hopefully stop over at the ranch, visit James, and maybe do a presentation there with all the latest discoveries.
Very nice.
There's plenty of it. and hopefully go to Hawaii as well, do a presentation there, and then coming all the way back in the second week of July to be a keynote speaker at the conference.
Pythagoras?
And the Pythagoras, I think, well, no, it's not the Pythagoras conference. It's in Montreal. It's in Montreal. It's the, oh my goodness, I forget what the conference is called now. But it's in the second week of July, on the 9th, 10th, and 11th of July. I'm doing 3 consecutive presentations there in Montreal. So in between, we'll fill it up with other cities across the USA and hopefully also Hawaii, and then come back to Montreal.
Very nice, very nice. Sounds like you got a busy year coming up.
Yeah.
Send us a list of the events and we'll post it to your page.
Oh, awesome. I'm going to actually start doing that this coming week. As soon as we've lodged the papers to the Constitutional Court and this thing goes official to all the media, I think we'll see a media rush on it, mainstream media rush on it by the end of next week. It's actually started already to a certain extent, and tomorrow morning I'm doing being interviewed for quite a while on a major radio station in Johannesburg. This is the big talk radio station in Joburg, so it's already started in mainstream media.
Very nice, very nice. Great.
I'll also be doing the Pythagoras conference later in the USA, and also I'm going to be doing something in Bosnia with Sam Osmanagic, the Bosnian pyramid man.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Oh, nice.
Nice. Very nice.
And I think that's in September, so I've been invited to come and talk there, so I'm really looking forward to that. And then, obviously, in November, I hope to host the UFO Science and Consciousness Conference again in Johannesburg for the second time, and but I'll tell you more about that when I've had some time to put it together.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we are out of time here, Ramon, so we better sign off here for the first hour. I want to thank everybody for listening, and join us over in the members section at www.thehundredthmonkey.com. And we love you guys, and condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
The love you deny is the pain you carry.
And we'll see you in the members section.
Yes, this song is called Be the Change, inspired by the words of Mahatma Gandhi, who lived for peace and not violence, and told us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Freedom's calling, I feel the fire that's deep inside us. Everybody wants change, but tell me who will guide us. To the leaders that pass away, put up your lighters. It's a beautiful struggle, but it cannot divide us. We're the ones that we've always been waiting for. See yourself in the mirror and open up the door. Walk through it and feel the love throughout your pores. Be the light, life's purpose is to feel joy. Metaphysical, lyrical, standing up for truth. The only one to make change is walking in your shoes. Be the example, don't complain about the news. Making music and serving the world with the loo. Now you can be the same, or you can be the change. Thought strength from inside, break through the chains. No one to blame, nothing to prove. You create your reality, it's up to you. Be the change
that you wanna see in the world. Like Gandhi, live for peace, aspire to peace. Someone who fights for the beliefs, like Martin Luther King. Aspire to be that love, that light, like Christ. This life for the moment indeed. And if you believe in Jehovah, Allah, Buddha, Krishna, it's love to me.
My soul yearns for peace in a world that's flooded with war. History's littered with body scar, trying to settle the score to maintain an archaic platform of power and greed. People fight for land out of survival and need. So I'm killing my television and I'm planting a seed to fill my head with knowledge that I'm seeing receive.